Okay, so today I'm going to teach you how to make a simple corporate video with an intro and an outro, a little bit of music in the front, a little bit of music in the back, and to show a logo overlay over the corporate video that you've recorded. So if you've recorded a video, a webinar, maybe something off the iPhone, and you have a video file, this is where you're going to start. So I'm going to be using Adobe Premiere Pro 2020. It's the same for any of the Adobe Premieres, 2018, CC, CS6, CS5, all the same workflow here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a folder, put a folder on your desktop or put a folder where you normally work, and that's where all of the video working files, I like to call them working files, are going to be held. So here's a folder that I have created, and here's all my working files that I'm going to be using. So I'm actually not going to use this. So here is our corporate music. And that's going to go where the intro is and where the outro is. I already have an intro-outro file created, which is just a simple little spinny logo thing, and I'll do a video on how to make one of those in the future. Then we have a logo for the company, which is a color logo, which is this one here, which we may use. And then I also like to create just an all-white version that you can't see here to serve as an overlay. And then here's the actual video file that was created by the client. So let's open this up here. And we have some little audio kind of happening. And what we'll probably end up doing is cutting off some of the head of this video too, some of the fluff. So without further ado, let's get started. Here's Adobe Premiere Pro 2020. I've hit the new project button, and it's going to ask us to give it a name and where to save it. So I'm just going to call this corporate, and I'm going to browse to the location I have my working files in. So let's go here, and let's go into video work and select that folder. Everything else you can leave default. If you have a graphics card with CUDA, it'll tell you here, leave the GPU acceleration set the way they have it here. Hit OK. And it's going to take you to a workspace similar to this, but always get in the habit of going to Window, Workspaces, and Reset to Saved Layout, so all the things are where they need to be and things aren't on different monitors like just happened just now to me. And the first thing I'm going to do is take my... Well, let me explain the anatomy of this window first so it's not so intimidating. The only thing you really got to know is down here there's a timeline, and this will start to build as we put files into the system. Up here is your preview window. Over here is your project files that you're going to be using to edit your video. And then up here is your effect controls. This is the only thing you're going to really pay attention to as a beginner. So what I'm going to do is take all my files here, except for the Premiere file that we just saved, and I'm going to drag them all into where it says import media to start. So I'm just going to drag and drop those. It's going to load them in, and here's everything here. So the first thing I'm going to take is my quality as a team. This is their file that they've created. I'm going to drag it right from the left right into this gray area here. Drop it anywhere in here. And it'll build your sequence. And it'll set up what's called, well, the sequence is actually the frame window of your project. So this is probably 1920 by 1080p, or 1920 by 1080 high, which is just standard high definition. So as I take my little blue scrubber here and I drag it to the right, I can see the whole video here, and I can see the end of the video here. So let's go ahead and cut out, I'm going to go ahead and preview this and cut out some of this stuff. So you may want to make a quick edit on a video to cut a portion of it out. And in this case, it takes a while for the video to actually start. So the client wants some of the head of the video trimmed out. The body of the video, which would be the rest of the video in the center, isn't going to be edited in this video. But we do want to take out some of that. So I'm going to do the same process as I would if I were to edit something out of the center over here on the head. So if you take a look down below, you'll see this wide bar right here. This is actually your zoom tool for the timeline. So what I want to do, since this video is nearly 48 minutes long, it looks like, here's our time marker here, I'm going to go ahead and take this right hand, I'm going to make sure my marker is over here. I'm going to take this right hand control and I'm going to drag it to the left, and it's going to zoom in. Now, if you look at the way the layers are set up in Premiere, you have V1, V2, and V3. So any data or project content or video content you place over the top of another layer, it's going to lay that on top. So understand that editing video is the same as editing something in Photoshop or anything that's layer based. So you have V1, V2, V3, those are video tracks. Then you have A1, A2, A3, A4, and so on. You can add tracks, those are audio tracks. So if we look at this current video, it has one video track and one audio track. And you can see that there's a lot of music in the beginning here. I'm looking at the waveform, these little jumpy lines. There's a lot of music in the beginning. There's some speaking that I'm going to play right now that I know we want to cut out. And then there's a lot of silence until the actual video starts. So let's play this and see what we're cutting out.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be starting in about 1 or 2 minutes just to give latecomers a chance to join.
So we're going to cut out all of this in the beginning, all of this here. This is just all dead time we don't want. And it looks like it starts about right here where you can see the sound kind of come back in.
Hi everyone. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get going.
So let's cut all of this video out. So there's two ways you can do this. Since this is the beginning of the video, if I hover my cursor over here on the left side, it's going to bring up a red arrow. If I leave it as a red arrow and I click and hold and I drag, I can basically take all of that time out of it and the edit would be done. So if I bring it back over here, I bring my timeline back and I hit play.
Hi everyone. So again, thank you so much for joining us.
That's one way to do it, but I'm going to undo it. The other way to do it, which is how you would be editing the middle of the clip. Okay, I'm going to edit this now. The way you would normally do it is if you were editing in the middle of the video. So over here on the left side, really the only tool you need to familiarize yourself with as a beginner is this little razor tool. And this is just going to basically create a cut in the video. So if I'm going to select my razor tool and I'm going to come over to here, and you'll see that as I drag along, it'll put a little line where I'm going to be cutting. So what I'm going to do is make my cut right here, where the actual talking starts to begin, because I'm looking at my waveform, I know that he's going to talk over here. So if I go back to my selection tool and I click on this clip, now you'll see that these two clips are separated. So now I can simply just click on this clip, hit the delete button, and delete the clip. You can also click on the clip, right click, and then delete it from the menu here. So we can go ahead and delete, which would be, we can go ahead and delete. I'm going to actually edit this clip the way you would edit a clip inside of the body of the video. So the only real tool that you need to familiarize yourself with here in this panel is the razor tool. So if you click on the razor tool, or there's a hotkey of C, and you hover over the video file here, you'll see that it makes a little line. So what you're going to want to do is, I'm looking right here at the wave monitor, I'm going to get it real close to that audio and I'm going to create a cut just by clicking. And you'll notice now if I go back to my selection tool and I click on this file, or this side of the video here, or this side of the video here, it's created a cut, which is perfect because this is the portion of the video that we want to delete. So you can simply delete it by clicking on it and then pressing the delete key on your keyboard and it will go away. So now, since we don't have any other edits, if I zoom back out onto here, I'm going to go ahead and bring this all the way left at the 0 marker, and I'm going to hit play and see if my edit is good.
Hi everyone.
There's still a little bit of a delay there. So if I zoom back in real far here, I can see that I still have some silence that I want to cut out. So if I click on the video clip and I hover over here, and I bring my video file to the right, I'm going to go ahead and make that my final edit placement. So I'll zoom this back out and I'm going to drag it over. Now I know that this file right here is good to go. All my edits are done. Now I want to add fancy music, intro, outro, the logo, and then do a final export. So if we look over here and I see my intro outro video that I've created and I drag it into the timeline here, it'll be really tiny. So take your zoom in tool and zoom in so you can see it. And then when you see it, you see the video and the audio file here, you take and hover your little mouse cursor over here until this turns red and bring it over. And then drag it back. And that should be the full video file. So now, if I take and zoom out and I drag my video back this direction, it'll auto magnet snap. So you'll see how there's a little faint black line that appears as I drag this way. So it'll magnet snap to that video, so there's just no dead space in the video. So if I play this now, it'll show the logo. The logo will pause for a little bit too long of a duration.
Hey everyone. So again, thank you so much.
And it goes right into it. So what we want to do now is edit down the time that this logo pauses and add in some music. So let's play it again. I think that's enough time right there. So I'm simply playing and pausing by clicking this play button here. So I've stopped it right here. So I'm going to select that clip again, find my little red cursor, and bring it back, and it'll auto snap to the timeline marker. Then I'm going to click on this clip and bring it over, and then now that pause on that logo will be much shorter.
Hi everyone.
Perfect. So now all we have to do is add some corporate music to the intro. So over here on the left side we have our corporate music. This is royalty free. You're going to take this file and drag it to the audio 2 layer and let go. And if we play it now,
Hi everyone. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get going in today's...
the only thing I don't like, and you'll run into this too, is now the music is too loud and you can hear it over him, but you want it to kind of fade out in a nice professional way. So the way I do this is I click on the audio file down here, I bring my timeline right to about where I want that music to start kind of turning down and going away so the voice of the presenter is more noticeable. So about right here. So I click on the audio file, I go up here to the top left where it says Effect Controls, I click on Effect Controls, and you'll notice now my timeline is up here and it's also here. So if I drag my timeline back, you'll see at the top, if you keep your eye up here, see how that moves? So about right here, I want that music to start getting lower. So what I'll do is over here where it says level, it says 0, 0, which means it's at its normal volume. I'm going to go ahead and click this little dot, and it's going to add a keyframe at that moment in time. Then what I'll do is you can hit spacebar or hit play, and I'm going to play it to the point where I want the music to be at its lowest point, so that presenter can speak, but you could still kind of hear it as a audio bed.
Hi everyone.
Right there. So now all you have to do is click the dot again and then go over here to 0.0 decibels where you can edit it, and I like to do -15. Now if we play it, it'll sound a lot more professional. So now you can kind of hear the audio bed, but it's not so overwhelming. So now that the presenter is actually speaking and we want to shift our focus from intro to now paying attention, you can eliminate the music entirely. So what I'll do is I'll hit the keyframe marker again so it holds at that -15 for that little bit of time. Play it a little bit more. And then I'm going to hit it again and type in -255. Now it'll be infinitely muted. So now, anytime after this point, you can hit the razor tool. You can cut the audio right there, go back to your selection tool, click on the audio file to the right of your cut line, and hit delete. You don't need any more of the audio. So now if we play it back.
Hi everyone. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get going in today's webinar, Quality as a Team Sport. My name is Bob Cruz.
See, and you didn't even really notice that the audio went away. It just kind of lowers itself nicely. So if we look at this video now and I zoom out, you can see how everything is real tiny. But if I kind of scrub here, it looks like their logo is being held at the bottom. So I don't need to add a logo file to this particular video. But if you did want to do that to your video, I'll zoom back out to show you how you would do it. You would find your logo here on the left side. You drag it all the way over here to video 2, and it'll be real tiny. You can't see it, but if you take your little red mouse again and you drag to the right, there it is. It'll appear. And if you notice now that it's way too big, you can resize it by clicking on the logo, the actual logo file, which is this pink file here, looking over here at the top left where it says scale, and if you drag the scale down or you type it in, it'll make the scale larger or smaller. So you can either click, you can type in the size that you want, or if you just kind of click and hold and drag your mouse left or right, it'll change the size of the logo. So usually what I'll do is make a logo about that big, and then to change the position, it's on the X and Y axis. So if you look at the position over here, you can drag it to the right, you can drag it to the left using the first number over here, and you can drag it up or down just like this. So I would put it right about there. And I would make it go the entire duration of the video. So the video is entirely branded. So I would just simply look over here, drag this all the way to the right, and now that logo that we placed here would be everywhere on the video, as you can see here. But we don't need to do it because they do a pretty good job at branding their webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. That's just a quick tip. Last thing I want to teach you before we export this is to go to the end of the video, zoom back in using this lower scroll wheel, find the intro outro again, drag that over here. Now let's listen to the ending of the video, and looks like we have some video we need to cut right here.
Has a LinkedIn page. And thank you, Sohail. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Right there is where we're going to cut it. So we're going to take the tail off of here. Same thing, you can just simply drag the video this direction here. Take your intro and outro video, drag that to the left there. And if we play this now, perfect. So now what we'll do is we'll just add the corporate music. So click on your corporate music file, bring it into the audio 3-track, actually, which is here. And we're going to have the audio kind of come in as he's saying goodbye.
Please connect to us, email us any questions, any thoughts that you may.
So we want it to start off low this time. So a gradual introduce of the audio. So if I click on my audio file and I go up here to my timeline and I bring it right to the front, I'm going to start the audio off at minus 25 decibels. Then I'm going to go to my effects right here, click on effects. I'm going to go to audio transitions, crossfade, and do constant power. So once you have that selected, drag it to the front of your audio file, which is right here. And this will bring in the music nice and light. So if we listen to the flow, and about right here, we want the music to start to get a little bit louder. So I paused it. My timeline is already set in the right location. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to do minus 18.
And with that said, we're going to close off for today.
And then I'm going to pause it again, and I'm going to click it again and go minus 12.
Please stay safe, stay well, and thank you, Sohail. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Pause it again, because this is right where the video is over. I'm going to click the minus 12 again, so it holds at minus 12 the entire time and doesn't ramp up. Then I'm going to do a play and a pause very quickly.
Bye now.
Right after he says, now I want the music to go to normal volume, so I'm going to type in 0. So you'll notice right here it made 2 tiny keyframes. I can't even zoom into them. They're so close together. But now if you listen, it'll go to max volume. So if we go back and play it back from the beginning, listen to the audio.
Page, please connect to us, email us any questions, any thoughts that you may have. And with that said, we're going to close off for today. Please stay safe, stay well, and Thank you, Sohail. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
So right here at the end of the video, instead of the video outro just turning black and going away, we want to add another transition. So if we go over here to our effects and we click on video transitions, find dissolve, then find cross dissolve, take that and drag it to the end of the video file of the corporate intro or outro. And you'll notice now it'll fade. And the other last thing that you want to do to the video to make it fade out professionally is now click back on your audio file, and right about where the transition is halfway, and what I'm doing is I'm looking at this right here, right in the middle of where that end of the transition is, click on the audio file, hit the level keyframe creator again so it holds at 0 decibels the entire time the outro was on. Hit play to play the video, and right there is where I want the audio to completely go away. So I have it paused about this spot, click on level and do -255, and it'll fade out the audio. Then take your razor tool, cut the audio at 255, click on your audio file to the right of the razor cut, and hit delete. So now if we play that back, you'll see how it kind of fades out nicely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Perfect. So now the only thing left to do is to export this to your desktop so you can upload this to YouTube or wherever you decide to put the video. So to do that, I click in the gray area here so none of the video tracks are selected. I go to File, I go to Export, I go to Media. It's going to pull up this frame that looks a little bit intimidating, but it's not. Make sure your format is set to H.264. Your preset is going to match the source, which is high bitrate. Your output name is going to be the name of the actual file that you're going to upload, which this is fine, quality as a team sport, but if you wanted to change it, you could just simply change it and change the directory that's going to save to. If you look here, it'll tell you that your source file was 1920 by 1080 and your output file is 1920 by 1080. So you know that it's going to be the exact same size when you export it. The other things you want to pay attention to now is this little video tab will be selected by default. You're going to scroll down, and I always click render at maximum depth. You can leave all these settings alone, leave all these settings alone. Get down to here. If this is a very high quality video, I would change this from VBR 1 pass to VBR 2 pass, but I'll leave it as a 1 pass. The one thing I do encourage you to do is to up your target bitrate so you get the maximum quality per pixel. So target bitrate is, I always try to set mine at 25. You can set yours lower, it'll make the file size smaller, but get in the habit of doing a higher bitrate if you can afford, if your resources can afford it. Everything else is fine on here. It's going to tell you that the final video file is 8,396 megabytes. Once all this is set up the way I just showed you, and you make sure that export video and export audio is checked, you can go ahead and hit the export button, and this will go ahead and export it to your desktop. Mine says it's going to take about 2 minutes. I have a pretty fast computer. This export time is greatly going to depend on the CPU, so your central computer processing unit, not your GPU. Premiere does not export on the GPU, so even if you have a fast graphics card, if your processor's kind of slow, you're going to have a slow export. This particular processor is an Intel Core i9. It has 14 cores, so my export time is going to be pretty fast. If you have a fast computer, you'll have a fast video. Okay, so you can see that the video just finished exporting. So I'm going to minimize the screen, and we're going to look at the actual video file that it put out, and we're going to look at specifically the intro and the outro to make sure all of our edits are correct.
Hi, everyone. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get going in today's...
That looks pretty good, and let's fast forward to the end of the video, which is here, and let's make sure our outro and our music sounds good.
Both of us for today. Please stay safe, stay well, and thank you, Sohail. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Cool. So it looks like everything is good to go. So this is ready to be uploaded to YouTube. So if you guys enjoyed this video and it helped you, make sure you rate, comment, and subscribe. I do appreciate it. If you do have technical questions or you want to know how to do something that I didn't cover in the video, make sure you leave it down below, and I will do my best to try to get in touch with you or get back to you as soon as possible. So I appreciate you watching. Thanks.